Welcome, everyone. We will open the Clackamas County Coordinating Committee. It's August 5th, 2021. And the first order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance. If you'll join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Welcome, everyone. Mayor Hodson will not be with us today. I believe he's on vacation. So if do we need to do introductions? Everyone feel comfortable with everyone recognize one another? Okay.
We have a few guests here today from Odot, and I'm sure they make really good rounds. These two in particular, Garrett and Lucinda and Della, but introductions might be good if you want to run through the boxes, Commissioner.
Okay, I'll call everyone as I see them. Trent, you've introduced yourself.
I have not. I'm Trent, and I staff this committee.
Great, thank you, Trent. Mayor Drinkwine.
Mayor Drinkwine from Estacada. Thank you.
Okay. Mayor Walters.
Mayor Jules Walters from Westland, and I use she/her pronouns.
Okay. Mr. Gornick.
Paul Gornick from Oak Lodge Water Services District.
Okay. Marge
Stewart, Furwood CPO, alternate to C4.
Mr. Gronke.
Ed Gronke, citizen rep of Clackamas County to Impact.
Okay. Thank you. Mayor Kaiser.
Mayor Kaiser from Malala.
Thank you. Council President Tracy Hensley, long time no see.
Hello. Yes, Council President Tracy Hensley. I'm standing in for the mayor tonight as I'm his alternate, and he is on vacation.
And you're from what city?
I'm from Canby.
Thank you. Councilor Platt.
Valerie Pratt from 12th City Council, and it's nice to see you, Garrett.
Dwight Brashear.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Dwight Brashear. I'm with SMART, City of Wilsonville.
Thank you. Mayor Fitzgerald.
Julie Fitzgerald, Mayor of Wilsonville. Also say hi to Garrett, my neighbor down the street.
Commissioner Schrader.
Hi, everyone. Martha Schrader, Clackamas County.
Thank you. Mayor Mark Gamba.
Mark Gamba, Mayor of Milwaukee.
Okay. Mr. Cook.
Rick Cook, Stafford Hamlet rep.
Okay. I deliberately did not introduce the ODOT members. I'll let them introduce themselves. With that, I'm going to take another look here at the agenda, and we will go to, housekeeping. So we want to, is there a motion to approve the minutes or any edits, or do we have a quorum, Trent?
We have a quorum.
Okay, awesome. I would accept a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Motion to approve the minutes.
Okay. Is there a second? Okay.
Second.
Okay. For ease of getting this done and voting, is there anyone who's in opposition of the minutes? Is there anyone who would like to abstain from the minutes? Great, the minutes are approved, thank you. Okay, that brings us to, pardon me. Okay, so that brings us to our ODOT presentation, and Trent, I'll let you introduce everyone and open this up.
Thank you. So we have Della Mosier and Lucinda Broussard from Odot here to talk about a couple things: the tolling project, the regional mobility pricing program, and our good friend Garrett, who used to be a 12th staffer and a regular here at C4. We're always happy to have him back to lead us off today. And ODOT has basically the whole meeting. This first part here from the Urban Mobility Office, and then Region 1 has the later part of the meeting talking about the STIP. And so happy to have our good friends from ODOT on issues that we care greatly about here in Clackamas County, and the floor is yours.
Excellent. I'll pull up the PowerPoint here, and then I'll turn it over to you, Della and Lucinda. And yes, it has been a void in my Thursday evenings missing you, so it's good to be back. It feels nice. Sorry. All right, is that better there?
Mm-hmm.
Full screen, okay. Della, Lucinda, I'll turn it over to you all.
All right, well, thanks, Garrett. I'll just pause here really quick in case, Lucinda, you had any opening remarks before we get this kicked off?
I don't, besides a thank you to inviting us back to give you an update on what's going on in the program. Go for it, Del.
All right, well, great. Likewise, good evening. Thanks for having us here again. My name is Della Mosher, and I'm the Deputy Director of ODOT's Urban Mobility Office. Again, it's great to be here alongside the Oregon Toll Program Director, Lucinda Broussard, as we provide an update on the Urban Mobility Office and Oregon Toll Program. Next slide, please. So today, the scope of this conversation while we're here with you is to work through a few topics that we have listed here. And hopefully our presentation, although we have many slides, will be somewhat brief. And today we're hoping to achieve a better understanding of the ODOT's Urban Mobility Office as well as the Oregon Toll Program. We're also trying to look at what the key problems are that we should be trying to address with tolling on I-5 and I-205. And then we also want to talk about how we can make a successful, equitable toll program. Next slide, please. So a little history on the tolling in Oregon. Tolling has been talked about in Oregon maybe for a lot longer than the last 30 years, but it was documented. There was a documented conversation in the legislature in 1995. And that continued through 2016, and it was focused on tolling rules and discussion. And then in 2017, House Bill 2017 was passed, the Keep Oregon Moving Bill, and that moved us out of talking about the tolling rules and discussion to really making a charge to develop an equitable tolling program in Oregon. This bill was supported by people across the political spectrum and throughout the state as a recognition that the congestion in the Portland metro area had statewide reaching impacts on folks living outside of the Portland metro area. In 2018, the Portland metro area value pricing feasibility analysis was conducted, and that also helped further our understanding of what tolling could look like in Oregon. And finally, next in 2020, ODOT launched the Urban Mobility Office. And the purpose of that office was to oversee, align, and implement the core urban mobility projects that are set up to achieve regional congestion relief, to improve mobility and safety for all users of the highway and interstate system. And then in 2021, just as recently as last month, House Bill 3055 was passed through the legislature. And this bill provides ODOT with the financial tools that are needed to deliver both the Oregon Toll Program and the associated congestion relief core mega projects. Next slide, please. So why did we need House Bill 3055? When we look at how funding revenues have been set up for the past century nearly, based on the gas tax, the demand and needs for maintaining the existing system do not match up with the revenue that we're getting from the gas tax system. And so you can see here we have a $510 million maintenance shortfall, and it's projected that the average Portland home will spend about 69 hours of delay in traffic in the future in 2040. And so we're struggling to maintain our system, let alone to improve it to be able to manage congestion. Next slide, please. So as we can see on this chart, traffic on the highways has returned to about post-pandemic levels. And we also know that when it comes to widening the wealth gap, that transportation trails only housing when we talk about the largest cost to families. We've seen how these forces have reshaped our region, and we're seeing people push to the edges where transportation options are the fewest. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned previously, the Urban Mobility Office was created by ODOT to address really the biggest issues of our day. Our charge is to use transportation to intentionally address equity, climate change, congestion, safety, as well as to establish reliable funding. Next slide, please. And thanks to House Bill 2017 and House Bill 3055, the Urban Mobility Office is managing many of the core projects seen on this map to be able to deliver for construction and implementation. The first project from the north that the Urban Mobility Office oversees is the I-5 Rose Quarter project. Then as we move down south to the Oregon City area, we have the IA-205 improvements project from OR 213 to Stafford Road. And then down at the very bottom, we have the I-5 Boom Bridge seismic improvements project. We also in the blue show the Oregon toll program, and that's really the heart and the center of the Urban Mobility's office's ability to be able to deliver these congestion relief mega projects. As we talked about earlier in this presentation, the gas tax isn't able to keep up with the maintenance that's needed on the system. And as Lucinda will talk about more later, the regional mobility pricing project could potentially create the revenue needed in order to be able to not only maintain the existing I-5 and I-205 system, but to also be able to generate revenue for investment in these mega project congestion management improvements. Other projects that are being managed by ODOT include the Interstate Bridge Replacement Project, which is located up at the far north over the Columbia River. This project is a bi-state project in partnership with WashDOT and is led by Interstate Bridge Program Administrator Greg Johnson. Over on the far middle left of the map, you also see the OR 217 Auxiliary Lanes project, which is set to bid this month and is being delivered by our partners in Region 1. And although the UMO, the Urban Mobility Office, is not managing the delivery of IBR or Oregon 217, we're coordinating closely as these programs are key contributors to the UMO's charge to address equity, climate change, congestion, safety, and reliable funding. We recently created a one-page graphic that shows how each of these projects align on a timeline, and I believe Trent has this document and can send that around at your request. And with that, I will turn the presentation over to Oregon Toll Program Director, Lucinda Broussard. Lucinda.
Thank you. And I will go through the rest of the slides. Any questions you can ask during, I don't mind stopping as we go along. I'm sure a lot of you have seen this slide before. I think I had it out last year actually, and we called it kind of the sweet spot of tolling, where we can manage congestion and generate revenue. So the toll rate, as all of our projects have these dual objectives, it's to manage congestion and generate revenue, but a toll rate has to make that happen. So we're talking about that little green area, which we're calling the sweet spot. I can tell you it's about 3 years away before we even start discussing what the toll rate may be, but that's our goal when we do set the toll rate, is to get it just right there where we're managing congestion and generating revenue. Next slide, please. How does it work? It's funny, it seems that we've talked about electronic tolling for a long time, but every place I go, somebody will ask me, is there going to be a toll booth somewhere around to throw money in? And the answer is no. To keep traffic or keep cars moving, the whole ideal is to have it all electronic. So this is a depiction of what it looks like. If you have as that bus does, it has a little white picture in the glass there, and that would be considered a transponder. It gets read as you go through and it's attached to an account, the toll comes out. In that case, it's a bus, so there'd be no toll, but it would be captured. And on the back end where you see the little orange car and you see kind of a shadow going towards that, that's a camera taking a picture of a license plate if you do not have a transponder. So it's all electronic, able to capture where you come in and where you go out, attach it to an account if you have one. If not, it's a license plate and we're off to the DMV to get your registration information. Next slide, please. What's the benefits of tolling? You know, everybody says it's the hard cost of tolling, right? We're just paying money, but we're not getting anything for it. And really tolling has its benefits. And when we're talking about congestion pricing, the ideal of a reliable trip, as I always say, it's really hard to talk to people about getting 10 minutes back in your life 3 years from now. But that's what we're talking about. We're talking about being home in time for dinner, being at work on time, and just having that reliable trip. Also, the reduction of greenhouse gases. We're not stopped in traffic, we're moving the traffic, and that's what congestion pricing does. Sustainable funding, as Della talked about, we have a lot of mega projects that we're trying to do and other projects. I would say that right now what we do is we maintain, and what we're trying to do is be innovative and create more investments. That's what we can do with tolling and with the funding that comes from tolling. And then equity. It's funny to me that we always have to take this one out the box and put it on the table for people to see, unlike quality, which you would expect in a program. And I think eventually we'd like equity to be like quality. We don't have to show it every time we come. You know that we have it in our programs. Next slide, please. Some key terms. You can go back one slide, please. There you go. Tolling, called many things. I think we kind of get caught up on that. Are we tolling? Is it congestion pricing? What are we doing? Congestion pricing is a part of tolling. You toll, it's a user fee. Congestion pricing is a fee to use the road. It's doing the traffic management, and tolling does that. Generate revenue, congestion management. We just call it a lot of different names. The public, when we went out, likes to hear the word toll. It's like we're not covering anything up. You know you're going to charge us, and we like that. Others like to hear the word congestion pricing. And I think there's somewhere in the middle or someplace we'll land, but we're really talking about tolling and other forms. Next slide, please. How much will it cost? As I said, we won't know that for a few years now, but the ideal is to move traffic during peak times, the toll would be higher, and off peak it would be lower, in which case we call that variable price tolling, congestion pricing tolling. What it is not is dynamic pricing tolling, which is it would change as congestion grew. Your price would go up and up and up, and it would, you could have caps on it, but that's not what we're doing. We will have it on our website during the time of 3 to 5. It's $3. You would know that before you took your trip. And that's some of the problem with dynamic pricing, is that you don't know that. It can start, you can look on the website, it could say $5, but when you get there, as in Georgia, when I was there, it could be $15.95, depending on traffic. So this is a known toll rate, higher during peak times, lower during off peak. And that is literally I was just looking at it again today. There is on YouTube, Doug McDonald, who used to be the secretary of WashDOT, he was trying to explain congestion management, and he used rice in beakers and put them through a funnel. When you put all the rice in, that's congestion. When you meter the rice, it's actually, he was using pricing as the metering. So when you meter it, all cars get through versus being congested in one area. So I'll send the link out. I'll send it to Trent so you can see. So that's what we're looking at doing. It's called variable price tolling, higher during peak times, lower during off peak. Next slide, please. What will it pay for? As Della said, core improvement projects. We're looking at how do you get that done? When we talk about the I-205 improvements project, how do you get it done if there's no money? So this will give us some revenue so we can pay for improvements on, the mega projects, Boone Bridge being another one of those. How are we going to get it to the next level? How are we going to get from maintenance into developing some additional investments? And the only way, or the way that we're talking about, is we're layering tolling on these projects. Abernathy Bridge adds a lane. Tolling helps with that congestion. So it's actually not a one shot or a one time, tolling is not the silver bullet. It is added on to the other things that we're doing in the areas. Transit multimodal options, always looking for options. As I always say, a bus is not the only answer. What are the other modes that we could provide to folks? I'm interested in the last mile. Depending on where you live. When I was in Georgia, it was the last 5 miles. Back east, it was the last 2 miles. Here, I think it's really the last mile, trying to get you from a hub to your home or from that hub to your job. And I think that that's important. And maybe that's not a bus. Maybe that's rideshare. Maybe that's a shuttle. Maybe that's Uber Lyft. I mean, you got to kind of start thinking outside of the confines of what we used to always say, just provide a bus, but that's not really what we need. And do we need sidewalks somewhere? You know, do we need a bike path? I mean, all of those things contribute to multimodal, and that's what we should be talking about. It's more multimodal. So that's another part of an investment. Neighborhood health and safety, when you talk about diversion, that's part of it, right? Where do cars go? What happens when they get there? Can we put some investments in moving people around? Maybe adding a stoplight where there's a stop sign, or a roundabout where there's a stop sign, and investing inside the community. And then the last one, of course, and the most important one, and the one we keep talking about, is equity. And that's income equity, right? How do we make sure that everyone can use the road? So not equality, but equity. Not that it's fair for all, but that we provide what people need. So in low income, actually House Bill 3055, Section 162 calls out low income toll rate. Our Equity and Mobility Advisory Committee will be looking at that also to give us some recommendations about how to do that. So it's important to us. We were doing it before, and we're going to keep on looking at what does it take to have an equitable toll program. Next slide, please. We always want to know when it's going to start. Even I do sometimes. It seems like a long time in coming, as Della said, been talking about tolls for decades. We're saying the earliest we could start is 2024. And I'm saying the earliest is end of 2024. Have to give ourselves some time. But throughout this whole process, we are talking about involving communities, getting feedback. It's not just ODOT doing this project. I think, as Della mentioned in the beginning, we're looking for what will it take to make it successful, and it can't be successful without all of you helping us get there. So we have the Regional Mobility Pricing Project. That's going to come on sometime after the I-205 project, which is the one that's ready to go. As you can see, our equity team will be working, and they will always be working because equity will not go away. We will always have things to do. As I said, it's priceless and it's endless. There are many things that we can do that we haven't even explored yet. And then will we be getting public input all the time and putting the feedback in and coming back out and reshaping? Actually, it will help us craft not just a good program that's just going to stay static, but that's dynamic. Next slide, please. Oregon Transportation Commission, one of the things they did was when they went around, they heard about the things that it's kind of like keep you up at night, some of these things and other things that just burn in your heart. And one of those was multimodal, transit multimodal, low income, and health and safety. Next slide, please. So they asked us to convene an Equity and Mobility Advisory Committee, which we did in May of 2020. I think I've talked about them many times. There are 15 members who have lived or working experience in equity. As you can see, Dwight Broussard is on that committee. Thank you, Dwight. And we have Abe Mullen, who's also in Clackamas County. And we have others who represent Clackamas County. But it's the ideal that these are just 15 individuals who have networks of more folks. So what we're looking for is they're coming up with the equitable recommendations for the OTC. They go back to the OTC with their recommendations, but we want their recommendations to go out to the public. That's who they represent. So we'll be looking for their recommendations to go out to the public to say, is this what you need? Because that's what we're looking for. We're looking for their needs and we're trying to represent them. It will come back to the Equity and Mobility Advisory Committee. They'll look at those, refine, reshape, send it back out to the public. So that way we make sure that we get that's what you need from the people that we're serving. Next slide, please. One of the first things they did was set up an equity framework. Others have started to use this, so it's not just for the Equity and Mobility Advisory Committee. And that first question is the one that they tackled first. Identify who, what, and where. And that's what they've been doing. They've been going through this framework. And as you can see, it's just like process improvement. You don't ever get to the end of it. You just keep going back and asking yourself those questions again and again. Next slide, please. Here's kind of the makeup of what they're looking at when they go to Oregon Transportation Commission. It's like they've gotten some research. We provide all the research that they ask for and some that we provide just so they know what's going around in the industry and the country. How are other people handling equity? What are some of the other measures people have used? And then what does that look like in a policy? And then what do our performance measures look like that we're doing through NEPA or the environmental process that we're going through? They're refining and reshaping to make sure that we are measuring the goals and that those goals are the correct goals. Next one. The 20th, they're it's actually November. I don't know why I like the 20th, but in November, they will be going to the OTC with their recommendations. So we'll make sure that we send out all of their meeting minutes and their meeting announcements. We will make sure that we do that always on our website. But yes, you can look for them there. You'll see them before then because we will be sharing what their initial recommendations are. Next slide, please. Regional involvement, as you know, we have a few committees and they're all regional. We do a transit multimodal work group made up of, you want to go to the next slide, please, real quick, made up of transit providers. And what we do is we actually set a table for that. So folks can come in, tell us what's going on in the area, what's the services that are there now, what might be needed in the future, but it's the ideal that we have the transit operators at the table talking to us about what's going on because we're really not in that space. You want to go back to the previous slide, please, Garrett? Thank you. Our regional modeling group, that's where we're doing our data analysis and that's where we share at. So we do our data analysis, we meet with our regional modeling group team, we share the data that we use, we share our results. The whole ideal is it's not done in a vacuum, is that we are sharing everything we're doing. And then the regional partner agency staff, where we give updates before we have the Region 1 Act meeting. Next slide, please. There you go. Speaking of the Region 1 Act, we're now doing a Region 1 Act Plus, which is a total work group meeting. And it's the opposite months, the alternative months of when the Region 1 Act does not meet. We'll meet for 90 minutes and we'll just talk about tolls, how we set toll rates, what are some of the toll policies, how does tolls work. We'll talk more about what happens with the revenue. And we're also inviting some of the Southwest Washington council members, mayors, or others who can come in and actually have that conversation with us because they're impacted by what we do also. So we want to have everybody sit around the table. We get a lot of questions during Region 1 Act. We never have enough time to answer all the questions. Here's a space where we're just talking about tolls. Next slide, please. As Della mentioned, we have the blue line. It's now a teal line on mine, but we're talking about the Regional Mobility Pricing Project. And as you can see, I call these the 5 fingers: equity, climate, congestion, safety, and reliable funding. That's throughout all of our projects. It's what the UMO stands for, it's values, and it's our values also. The teal line is where we're talking about doing the Regional Mobility Pricing Project, which actually adds the rest of what we're not doing on the I-205 project, OR 213 to Stafford Road, all of the rest of I-205 and all of I-5 congestion pricing. Next slide, please. How to get involved. This one's big, and we're doing the same things we've always done. We're providing the briefings. We're doing small group discussions. We'll do presentations. We are out trying to get the word out. Why? Because we need to do a purpose and need statement, just as we did on the I-205. Why do we need to do congestion pricing? Why is it important to do it on the I-5 and the I-205? And we need to hear back from each of you about how to shape that statement. So we are looking for comments and any questions you may have. Next slide, please. I-205 project, as I said, that's another one. Without tolls, we don't get to do all of those improvements. And that's OR 213 to Stafford Road. Same the 5 fingers. We're going to poke those everywhere we go. And they're on the I-205 project also. Next slide, please. How to get involved in that, same idea. We're always reaching out. We'd ask that you reach out to us also. And what are we looking for now? For I-205, we've already done the purpose and need. We are in the NEPA now, or the environmental assessment. And what we're looking for now is what mitigations do we need to do through the project? So that is what we're asking now. We will be out asking. We are, if you know us, we are always out asking. It's either, we always have a question, and that would be another one. And we'll be reaching out the same way we do with the Regional Mobility Pricing Project. Next slide, please. What does I-205 diversion look like today? That is what we've done some research on that. That is not what we're trying to do. We're trying to make sure that we make that picture look better. So this is what it looks like today. And what we're looking for is we're looking for those mitigations that can make this better. Right. And we're making sure that our impact doesn't make it any worse, but actually adds value and makes it better. Next slide, please. How are we doing that? You know, we do a lot of data analysis, and, you know, we go from the big to the small, and that's basically what this is saying. You know, we looked at the region, we'll look at the area, and then we'll look at specific locations. And we have asked everyone to give us those pain points in your communities. And we'll go at a micro level and look at what's happening there and try to determine what mitigations need to be done, and actually ask you for what mitigations you think need to be done in those areas also. Next slide, please. Here are the 5 areas. It's kind of regional, not the specific intersections, but the areas that we're looking at that we know are pain points from our analysis. As you can see, Oregon City is a pain point. West Linn, we have the West Linn Willamette Falls. Come on down to Canby. Those are all ones that we know we need to dig deeper into. So this is kind of that, oh, did I miss one, Garrett?
No, I think you got it. Yeah.
Okay. I thought you were circling something. Let's see. So sorry about that. But this is just kind of like that big picture. Here's the big picture. Here's where we see that there are pain points. And then we're going to get deeper into the where that is on each street. Like what intersection is really the pain point? And what does that look like? And we'll do the analysis, and then we'll start talking about what the mitigating factors would be for those intersections. Next slide, please. We always need your help. We can't do this alone. We're always looking for feedback. That's why we're doing simple surveys, and our simple surveys are 2-question surveys. Just 2 questions, a minute of your time is all we're asking basically. This week was the last one of 5. We're always looking for your comments on our draft problem statement for the I-5. We are always just looking for comments on how you think the toll program is going, what intersections, if we have a list of them that we send out and we don't see one that you think should be there, to please add it there. We are looking for your feedback. Next slide, please. And again, just wrapping up from where Della started, you know, we want it to be a successful, equitable program. We also want to know what the problems are for the I-5, I-205. We want to hear from you about that. And then we wanted to make sure that we gave you an update about what's going on at the Urban Mobility Office. So thank you for your time. Do appreciate it. I'm going to go to the final slide. That's how you can contact us, but you can always just contact us. Thank you so much for your time. I do appreciate it.
Is this the opportunity for Q&A? Okay, great. I see Lucinda shaking her head up and down, so I'll take that as a yes. Thank you. I have one question, and then Trent, could you moderate the questions from this point forward? So my question is, or comment, and then a question. What really came to light with I-205 that really impacted the areas of Stafford and West Linn, Oregon City, even Gladstone to some degree, and Wilsonville, Stafford Road, is that the the congestion I-205 has caused a lot of diversion, cut through traffic all around, and also through Canby as well. I can't forget Canby. And so when I-5 backs up or I-205 backs up, we have this diversion. And so that was I think a lot of the reason why we wanted to take care of that bottleneck on I-205 and the Abernathy Bridge. So that congestion obviously happened at peak hours, usually on the weekends, sometimes on Sundays afternoon, people returning. There's also congestion, but for the most part, it was pretty predictable. And so I have two questions. It seems as though that introducing tolling might be a reason for people to reroute, to divert around the area being tolled. And so that's a concern. And it seems like if that is a 24/7 obstacle, we might see, instead of just peak hour diversion or motivations for people to divert or reroute, we would have really a 24/7 situation. And that kind of concerns me. So when we last talked about this, I believe, I raised the question of why we weren't studying 99E through Canby, for example. Has that been added into the diversion study? Or is that yet to come, or will that be added?
That is one of the areas that has been added.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilor Lewis, you're up.
Great, thank you so much. And thanks for a pretty thorough presentation tonight. I am sorry I was a few minutes late. It's because I was stuck on 205, not even able to get home by 6:45. But when I think through the evolution of how your program's developed, I think in some places you have been incredibly responsive to what you've heard from mayors, from the region, from people here who are affected already by diversion, who will be affected even more both by diversion and the lack of other options. They have to take this route. So I would just like to know a little bit more about your plans for working with the local communities, either on a discount program and or on making sure that there are some real alternatives before something goes in as soon as 2 years from now. And then a second question, separate question, is when do you realistically think I-5 will be up and going? Because it was my understanding that we were going to be moving forward with 5 and 205 at the same time, since we actually have to work with a whole system together. Thanks.
So I can answer the second question first. The Regional Mobility Pricing Project, that is in their preliminary stages. So we're out doing our community engagement right now before we get into our NEPA. That looks like it's going to complete in 25-26, and we turn that on right after. So that's the last question you asked, and then the first question you asked was about mobility, other modes of travel that we would offer, and also low in or some kind of discounts for travel. So we are looking at low income discounts for travel, which is in House Bill 3055 to do, which we were looking at anyway, but that's on the table too. And we are always looking at what we can do with transit or multimodal.
But no discounts for geographic proximity.
At this point, there hasn't been a recommendation for that, for geographic reduction in tolls.
Okay. I'd be curious to have those studied, not to lead with them, but there's no way I can get groceries without interacting with 205. So if you've just put a toll on my trip to get groceries, we're talking about something pretty different than just a highway project. So thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for the question.
Thank you. Mayor Walters, you're up.
Thank you. And thank you for the thorough and great presentation. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate how you've kept us in the loop throughout the process. I want to first echo what Councilor Lewis said. I'm hearing a lot from the community in Westland, since we'll be so disproportionately affected by tolling, about how can we mitigate some of that for people just trying to get their kids to the middle school or to the grocery store. And so I would love to hear some more about those conversations. I also wanted to note, as Garrett was circling the pain points, Don't leave out Highway 43 because that backs up to the city limit with Lake Oswego daily. So at least 2 times a day. So let's keep that on the radar as well. Thank you.
I added it to the list right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Pratt.
I have 2 questions. My first was similar to a question that was asked before, but I was wondering if anything had been looked at for reduced rates for businesses that are like maybe on and off this road all the day doing deliveries or whatever, and will be on I-5 or I-205 many times during the day. And my second question is, when you're looking at the environmental impacts and reduced greenhouse gases, are you considering the effects of the diverted traffic onto the other roads that are diverted?
Yes, I think you went off mute. Were you done?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
So yes, we are. And then the small business, we're actually going to be targeting in on small business and how they would be impacted by tolls. So that is still to come.
And I would say one of the things, if you want to look at where that would show up at the Equity and Mobility Advisory Committee, we've been talking about these social resource maps. And so on there, you'll see schools, healthcare centers, and other things that aren't normally picked up, like food pantries and access to kind of community resources. So there's really not a great inventory, a map of that today, but we're hoping our project helps lift that up, and then we'll be able to share that data with Clackamas County and the regional work to kind of improve our entire way we plan for transportation.
Thank you. Mayor Gamba.
Thanks. Good presentation. Interestingly, I was struck when reading the packet by the not insignificant number of trips that are fairly short trips. I think Councillor Lewis has described some of those. And that leads me to wonder if there aren't more opportunities for designs, particularly in multimodal, more opportunities for transit, more opportunities for bike ped, but further opportunities to design things that aren't on 205 that would allow that local traffic to occur without having to utilize the interstate.
So we are looking at not only the transit, as I said, ride share, and other areas or other local streets that may be impacted once we put in a toll, and what we can do to help with that traffic or congestion that may happen there. Does that answer your question, Mayor Gamba?
Not exactly. No, I'm just, I think I'm trying to recall the numbers exactly, but I think it was something like 20 to 25% of the traffic occurred within both people got onto the interstate and got off the interstate within the project area, which is not insignificant, right? If we could reduce the congestion by 20 to 25% right off the bing, that's a big reduction in congestion. And if I'm wondering if we are looking at alternatives that don't involve the interstate, and whether the possibility would exist for those things to be funded by this project to build both streets and bike ped and transit options for local trips.
We are looking at what mitigating factors we would need to do, and I think that's part of mitigation. So yes, but no, we don't have the answer today. But yes, we are analyzing that.
Thank you. Mr. Cook.
Yeah, I live on Stafford Road, and I feel the pain currently. Question is, so if the tolling is going to start at Stafford towards Oregon City, there's going to be a lot of diversion there. And on the pain points listing, is there a sheet where I could actually go to see that? Because I don't think we saw Stafford, Johnson Road, Borland Road, Eck Road, that is the major bailout points for that area. And then my second question was, what happens to the gas tax money?
I'm going to let Della answer the gas tax money, but I'm going to answer we're going to share the list of all the intersections that were identified. So we'll share the list. We'll send it to Trent and he can send it around.
Do those names sound familiar of Borland?
Borland Road definitely sounds familiar. I'm not sure about Eck.
That's
Garrett?
Just south side of, it's Borland, but on the south side of basically 205.
I didn't hear that one.
We'll send the list. I mean, in general, all of this area, everything you saw on the map gets some level of analysis and look at. But where we're showing up, like Lucinda's talking about, pain points are these intersections, are where levels down that get kind of additional analysis. So we can pull you information on basically anywhere you want to point to on the map and say kind of what our planning kind of looks, whether it impacted or not type thing. So yeah, we can get you information on that, definitely.
I guess my concern is that they're taking into consideration that a lot of people will be bailing out at that point in time to avoid the toll.
Della, gas tax? Oh, you're there.
Yeah, I'm here. I'm just wondering, could you specify your question or bring it in a little closer?
I was trying to keep it short, but so as now we're going to try to fund more of road maintenance and those things. So is that going to relieve anything on the gas tax? At some point in time, will the gas tax goes down? Is the gas tax going to go up or?
Yeah, great question. So I think you're talking about the general budget. In the beginning of the presentation, we showed, gosh, we have this big shortfall. I think what we're talking about as we set up the toll program, and especially the regional mobility pricing project on I-5 and 205, we're talking about adding an additional source of revenue so that the pressure for the gas tax to take care of all the needs in the entire state and specifically the Portland metro area, that pressure comes off because quite honestly, it can't meet those needs. That's why we're looking at that $500+ million shortfall. So as we diversify into bringing on toll revenue to be invested back on the corridors, we're looking at opportunities to be able to not only maintain the system on the I-5 and 205 corridors, would be able to make improvements in all sorts of programs, including the mega projects that Lucinda described. And then that does allow some of that statewide gas tax revenue to be able to be used in other part of the states and might be able to provide some relief and for those areas to be able to potentially be able to maintain the system a little bit better. But for the Portland metro area, we're truly talking about diversifying and adding a new form of revenue. Does that answer your question?
Well, in a sense, yes. But I guess I'm looking at, so the people that live in this area, will we be double taxed, or is that money that is raised still? I guess the question would be that this project is not going to lose money from the gas tax because that money will go someplace else.
No, correct. So the shortfall will be less of a shortfall because the Portland metro area needs will have been met. And the gas tax has the 50-30-20, so 50 to the state, 30 to local agencies, or sorry, to the counties, 20 to the cities. That all stands. It's just that the deficit that we see in Portland metro area's contribution to that deficit will get some relief by setting up the toll program.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Commissioner Savis, you're up. And I would just note we do have our next presentation ready to go there. I see you there, Chris. I just wanted to give you a heads up that we're getting close.
Yeah. So Della, maybe you can answer this question. If someone in West Lynn wanted to simply go across the Abernathy Bridge to Gladstone to go shopping, grocery shopping, let's say, it's a short trip. Will they be charged the same amount as someone from Stafford who's using the entire 5.8 miles to go, for example, that same trip? Is there any prorated for where you on ramp to versus a third of the trip versus the full trip?
Well, I'll take a quick stab at it, and Lucinda, I'm sure will correct me, but you know, that relates back to toll rate setting. So as that is set up, I'm sure we probably won't be so minute that we charge per every 100 feet, but it certainly also won't be every 100 miles a certain rate. So somewhere in between there is probably where folks will settle, but I'll defer to Lucinda and her expertise around toll rate setting.
And that's like looking into a crystal ball. It depends on if we do segment tolling or point tolling, in which case if we do point tolling, it would be, you would pay for the crossing of the bridge, versus if we do segment tolling, which might be from off-ramp, like 2 miles into the next off-ramp. So it really depends on the schema that we use. That has not been determined yet.
If I can, just with one follow-up, I think the concern, you know, expressed by Councilor Lewis at the beginning about something as simple as, and of course in need, people need to go to the store, and nothing worse than maybe adding $6. If it's a $3 trip and it's two-way, that would be $6 to get a bag of groceries just for the travel time, and that's steep for some people. Okay, so knowing that the topography in West Lynn, the topography in a lot of these areas is very challenging, and the shopping is significantly, like in West Lynn, top of Solomon Road, where the council chambers are. You know, there's a nice grocery store up there. That's very difficult for people to ride a bike on or to walk up. That's just not a practical trip for a lot of people. So I guess I come back to the I know there's a lot of support. You've heard it from us, but at some point I would love to hear a commitment for some kind of a local shuttle transit that can move people back to these practical places on both sides of the freeway and all around, because there has to be that commitment, or you're gonna have a very tough time for any buy-in whatsoever.
I want to say that the shuttle ideal is, as I keep saying, multimodal. You know, how do we get people around? So we will definitely, it's in the pot of things to talk about.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Rick, is your hand back up, or is it from before?
It's back up very quickly. So I know in the Bay Area, San Francisco, they toll one direction, and this will be tolled both ways, no matter what time of day or when or why.
Don't know yet. Haven't set that up yet. I know it's told in one direction, and they charge you the $5 or the $6 to cross the bridge one time. Yeah.
Interesting.
I've been taking notes and have several things to follow up with this committee on. Della, so far my list is the Doug McDonald video, the timing document that you sent to me earlier today. Thank you for that. Could you also please, Lucinda, forward me the surveys link, or a link to the surveys page? Sure. I think that this group would benefit from that. And I heard you say it was the last of several surveys, but this is a group that has access to a lot of people. And so I don't know when you're closing that survey, but if this group could perhaps mobilize to get more people to take that survey, this could be a beneficial group to that. If you want to leave it open for longer, here's an opportunity. Thank you so much. Appreciate that.
Okay, well, great. Well, thank you so much, Lucinda and Della and Garrett. Your presentation is very much appreciated, and we look forward to seeing you the next time. We'll move the agenda over to the next topic, which is the 2027 State Transportation Improvement Project update. So Chris Ford is our guest. Garrett, I mean, not Garrett, but Trent, are they in the room?
They are in the room. I am so tempted to make a dad joke about, a bottleneck of Odot staff presentations here today, but I guess I did it right there. So there it is. Yes, Chris Ford and Scott Turnoy here from Odot Region 1, here to talk about the State Transportation Improvement Program. And the context is that they were here in June. So this is kind of an update to that conversation.
Absolutely. Can you hear me okay? Can people hear me?
Yes, we can.
We got you.
Okay, good. I've had a funky audio situation. Speaking of dads, there's a 80% chance you'll all get to meet my 7-year-old because he is really determined to come in here. So yeah. All right, so I'm going to share my screen and share a presentation. This is for any of you who are at the ACT on Monday, the Region 1 ACT. This is going to look a little bit familiar. I'm going to try to move through it quickly so that there's a good amount of time for questions and discussions, because again, this is an update to when we were back here in June. So let me share my screen. And oops, this is trickier than I expected. Okay. Share my screen. All right, did that work? Do you all see presentation?
We see it.
Okay, good. Everything is going great. All right, thank you so much. I'm just going to give a really quick overview of about our STIP website and actually a little bit about the pedestrian bike strategic program. Those will be newish information for you all, though it's out there, and then talk about an update in the enhanced program, and then we can have a conversation and answer questions. So to begin with, so the STIP is a refresher for you all. It is a federal funding package for all kinds of transportation work, and every 3 years we program one. It's kind of on a rolling 3-year basis. We're currently in the 2021 to 2024 STIP, and we're already working on identifying the projects for the 24 to 27 STIP. It's a little bit of a long process. So, and there is an overlap here. You heard me say 21, 24, and then 24, 27. These are federal fiscal years, which by the way, start on October 1st, just to add to the confusion. But we have a website. I'll make sure that Trent has this presentation afterwards that has a lot of information, and it describes all the different STIP programs like Fix It and Enhance and Safety. And it has information on not just the STIP we're working on, but as well as the current and past ones. And what it also includes is lists of the projects that are under consideration right now. So if you go there and you click on, for instance, the Enhance program, there's a bunch of information that will open up, and there'll be a description, and then it will have, for most of the programs, a link to what's currently being scoped, and it will come up and something like this will pop up. It looks a lot like what's in your packet for today. And that's probably where this came from. And so another brief description and a list of projects that we're currently looking at. And these projects are either being under some kind of evaluation or currently being scoped to learn more about what they would include, what they would cost, because ultimately we have a budget that we have to fit. So as you can see on the right, whether you're into QR codes or if you simply want to click here, there's a way to enter a comment on a program. This is an example from the safety program where you can enter a program on either an ODOT or a local arts suggestion or something from HB 2017 safety and share your thoughts. And these get emailed to our staff. So ultimately, this is something that we hope is a helpful tool to allow people to understand a little bit more about what we're looking at and to provide comments. And as you can see there on the side, the kind of a shorthand version going to the website is odotregion1stip.org. I'm guessing no one else has wanted that long URL, but that's at least a little quicker than the other one. So odotregion1stip.org. Simply is a great way to answer your curiosity and questions while we're working on. This is a very brief overview of something that was gone over at the Region 1 ACT on Monday. It has related to what we're calling PBS, the Pedestrian Bike Strategic Program. There's $45 million across the state for that. There is a way to kind of make this more of a discretionary program, and it is being run by our statewide program, where all of the regions are collecting information and sending it to statewide for their further decision about ultimately what are the lists of projects that we're going to look at further. And so with a lot of programs, Fix It, Bridge, Arts, we are currently already looking at a defined list of projects that you can find on our website. We're a little behind on Pedestrian Bike Strategic just because of it's a new program and there's a lot of new ways of looking at things. And so we plan to have an open house coming up in the near future, really kind of mid-September through the end of October. That will of course be run by statewide, and that will have a 150% list of projects. In other words, it's a draft list of which we think about 2/3 of those would make the final list of what would be funded. And there will be an ongoing chance for all sorts of bodies as well as the general public to make comments on that. And so with a lot of these programs, we're being asked to come and have discussions with the area commissions of transportation and advisory committees. This will also happen in the enhanced program. And you're one of our advisory committees, C4. So you will be seeing us again to the degree that we fit onto your schedule. Going back to the last slide, just the PBS program actually covers a lot of different things and is being run by our public transportation division, but it's looking to address multimodal gaps, priorities projects in locations with the equity and safety benefit. And we are trying to find ways to kind of combine and leverage things such as ADA ramps or other high priority locations. This does not replace the bike bill type work where there is a certain amount of money where we leverage and add it on to other projects. So this is additional funds. So I know there'll be a number of these projects in Clackamas County. I don't have the list of projects yet, but that's something that will be coming up in the next few months. I want to make sure to flag that. I'm going to go ahead and jump into the enhanced presentation so that if you have questions about what I've just presented, you can ask it all at the end. So as a reminder, I was back here, I think it was with John Mackler at the time in early June. And this is a statewide program. There's $65 million for the entire state of Oregon. A target of at least 30% of that is dedicated to areas outside of MPOs. They're calling it rural. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but rural is the term we're using. And any project in the enhanced program has to improve congestion or address freight conditions or both. Things that don't do one of those two things aren't eligible. And then there's bonus points of consideration for projects that benefit safety, accessibility, equity, and or climate. So the way this is working is this is a ODOT staff activity where we're going out and asking advisory committees of all sorts, the ACT, the coordinating committees, we've gone to TPAC workshops, whenever we've had chances to chat with agencies and cities and jurisdictions, we've done so. And ultimately, it is up to Region 1 staff as well as Region 5 staff, et cetera, to submit a draft list to an internal at ODOT project selection committee who will identify a draft list that will then be scoped. So I kind of went over this right now. And so by the end of this month, Region 1 staff will be submitting our list of projects, our draft list of projects to that project selection committee. And at some point in September, they're going to identify, I don't know, a draft list, 125, 150% list that will go through some scoping and analysis. And later this year in wintertime, we're looking to come back and get more input on the scoped projects. In the spring, there'll be a final list selected. So I've been asked many times how we generated our initial draft list, the one that we came to with you in June, then we went to the ACT right after that. And so we targeted about half the amount of money for Region 1. I have no idea how many projects or how much money Region 1 will get overall. As you're aware, there are a lot of the state's transportation funding is focused in the area. So I don't have any inside knowledge of what that will be like. So, but we thought that we would target about that much. We're looking at projects throughout the whole region, which of course includes rural areas outside of the MPO, like rural Clackamas County and Hood River County is definitely an area that doesn't otherwise get a lot of attention. We definitely had to apply the criteria and requirements. And we looked a lot at project costs and readiness. Like a single project that costs half of $30 million would be kind of a tricky thing to advance because that would be putting a lot of our focus on one single project. And also there's a lot of good opportunities out there in terms of projects, but we're looking for some that can be constructed really pretty soon where we have a clear sense of its next steps, that we already have a clear cost estimate, and that it's something that could be delivered within a relatively short amount of time. Of course, a project's already got to be consistent with the RTP and state and local plans. This is something that's pretty important, just again, part of that readiness. So what we ended up doing was coming out to coordinating committees, local agencies. We heard a lot from people, sometimes for questions or comments overall about the program or types of programs. We did get submissions from some particularly local agencies. And what we ended up doing is maybe we bumped our target up a little bit. And we definitely looked to have at least 10 million, like a third of that in rural areas. And we were still looking around the region. Planning projects are eligible, design work is eligible, but we're definitely prioritizing construction readiness because we think that gives us the best chance of getting money for the region. And then things that we considered, again, congestion relief for freight mobility plus, you see everything else down there I mentioned before, but cost, equity, multimodal accessibility, readiness, climate, and safety. Really want to make sure that something has some other aspects. So this is a location, this is a map of Region 1. I don't know how well you can see it, but a lot of the large cluster blue areas is really the urban metro area. And then looking over into Hood River County and up onto Mount Hood. And we presented a list, a number of them were in Clackamas County at the time. We got a couple of suggestions from stakeholders, and these are in orange. Two of them, one was from Oregon City on 213, and another one was from Happy Valley on 224. And we've had some discussions with the staff from those jurisdictions. And at this point, the proposals that the staff are updated ODOT Region 1 staff recommendation are projects in these following locations. And I actually can't see very well. There we go. And one of them's in City Hood River, one in Cascade Locks. And then I'll kind of go through the collection of what is ATM ITS work. And then ultimately at the bottom, that's the 551 interchange northbound. So a lot of the projects listed are in a package of active traffic management. Maybe you've heard ATM, and there's at least 3 different locations. And a lot of this came from our 2016 active transportation atlas, our ATM atlas work, where there was an evaluation throughout the region of where there would be some good kind of bang for the buck projects that were really about making the best use of our existing systems. A lot of these have to do with signs or other information. And what we found is these really provide a decent reduction on congestion as well as fender bender type issues. And so this is something that does address the congestion component as well as has a safety element in terms of the request from the enhanced program. And there's really 4 of them around the region and the locations here. One of them is, as you can see, on I-5 going northbound between 217 and the Capitol Highway. But there's also, actually, I think it's both directions, but then there is a spot at Corbett northbound, and then out on 84, and another one on US 26. So this package alone provides a lot of geographic distribution. We got a nice letter of support on this from Metro, both the staff and from one of their counselors. And so we just think that, again, makes really good use of the system. And this is an effective program, especially for a relatively modest amount of money, $19 to $24 million all told. These could obviously be broken up into sub-projects. This is the only other one in the urban area. There's a question whether or not this is urban from the definition of the enhanced program. And that is a auxiliary lane extension on the 551 northbound ramp. There's a picture there where you kind of see there's 2 oncoming ramps really closely combined there. This is a congestion issue. This is a freight issue. This is a safety issue altogether. There's a really short merging distance. And this doesn't meet a lot of our standards around acceleration distance and distancing of exits. So it's also a substandard area right now. And so it turns out this is outside of the metro boundary. This is outside of the urban growth boundary. It is, however, within the metropolitan planning area, the MPA. So it's unclear whether this is urban or rural. The MPA is designated by, comes from census data. So is this urban, is it rural? It's not really clear, but this is a major project we're looking to move forward, again, because of all those issues. And the other 2 projects are out in Hood River County. I'm happy to talk about them. They're relatively modest in cost and size, and they really address some freight issues as well as safety issues and multimodal issues. Things where there's kind of truck interface with pedestrians, and that's in Cascade Locks near the Bridge of the Gods, where we're trying to make for a safer, better truck turning area. And then another one involves the first exit as you're going eastbound towards Hood River and relates to freight access as well as making sure there's a bike pedestrian access. So right back here, we're kind of getting near the end of this phase of ODOT seeks input from ACTs, MPOs, and of course, coordinating committees and other stakeholders in possible projects. So that's our updated sense right now of what we're looking to move forward. So we're back here. Got to come to you twice, given the timing of everything, to see if you have any questions or thoughts at this point. And Trent, I will keep the screen up in case someone wants to go see a particular slide, but I can also stop sharing if it's better to see everybody.
I think the gallery view is probably best.
All right, I will stop the share.
Okay, are there any questions for Chris? Oh, I see one from Rick Cook.
Just out of cilosity, is there any way to combine funding from anything from the I-205 project to take care of Willamette Drive or Falls Drive or Stafford? So any chance to work together to come up with more money to take care of more regional areas?
I mean, that's kind of, it sounds like an overall STIP question. And so, I mean, many things are possible. This is specifically about trying to program the 24-27 STIP. And this is about freight congestion. It's about freight or congestion issues on state highways. So I'm not sure, I don't know enough about those specific locations about what to do there. It's probably more really a question with either the 205 project manager or so I can get back to you, but I don't know if the enhanced program is really the way to do that. Okay, I can write, what are the specific locations you talked about? I can just write it down.
I'm sure anything that coming off of from Stafford Road to exit 10 to the bridge area, I mean, all those are gonna need substantial help. So, and if those roads go into like south of 205, that's pretty rural. For Eck Road, EK,
that's great. It's very short.
Yeah, I would just echo you know, what Chris mentioned. One of the criteria for the STIP enhanced dollars is that the project is on a state highway. So if there was a way to leverage, like you're saying, if there's a you know, possibility of leveraging a project on a state highway with a local project or a local improvement or some other program that could address an improvement on, say, Eck or Borland or Johnson Road, like you mentioned before, that's something we can certainly take a look at. But in terms of using the STIP enhanced funding, it's probably limited or constrained at this point.
Well, they might become highway type.
Given the previous agenda item conversation, well, yeah.
With all the diversion, we may
yeah.
reclassify them. Thank you both very much.
Thank you.
I don't see any more hands up, but I believe, and maybe someone could speak to this, that it had if Lucinda or Della were still on this call, I don't see them, but I do recall that they talked about perhaps enhancements that can be done with some of the tolling dollars if they feel that's part of the mitigation, or whether that's safety improvements or sidewalks or something on those particular roads, that might be something that can be looked at or studied. So that wouldn't be ruled out. Oh, there's Della.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner Savas. Yes, you're absolutely correct. You're doing great.
Okay, so there is that opportunity, Rick, for those dollars, possibly if they feel that there's a high enough need and you know, there's an interest in that as well. So I know there's a lot in the air, there's a lot of uncertainty, but they're gonna keep on coming back to us, both at the R1 Act and here. So we'll have plenty of opportunity as this gets refined and move forward to advocate for some of those improvements. So, and is there, I'm just kind of wondering if there is someone on the staff side is really studying that analysis. That's, you know, one of the traffic engineers that's looking at that analysis to figure out where the highest needs might be, or the most traveled roads are, the diversion roads. And so as that progresses, that might be a good piece of information or a person that could probably address some of these questions like that. You know, what have we identified as needs for improvement or capacity or areas that might be vulnerable to diversion or safety issues?
And if I could just add in there, we've got the 24-27 STIP, which is, you know, we're in the first, Chris and his team are in the first, you know, mile of a marathon, developing that funding package in the toll program. We're still a ways out from identifying toll rates and finding out what the investment revenue would be once we set up tolling. And so there's a lot for us to identify where the issues are right now, and then to work together to look for ways to fund improvements to those areas. This is the perfect and right time to be having those conversations, and who knows what else might be coming through federal packages as well. So this is the right moment for us to roll up our sleeves and find out where the pain points are, as Lucinda had mentioned earlier with Garrett, and then to work with all the funding opportunities that we have, including partnering on the STIP and through the toll revenue to look for ways to meet those needs. So thanks for the opportunity to talk about that.
Yeah, thank you, Della, for sticking around. Thank you so much. Are there any other questions for Chris or Scott? Okay, seeing none. Chris, Scott, thank you so much. Della, again, thanks for jumping in. It's much appreciated. I think we're a little bit behind, but I think we're doing just fine. So Trent, I'm going to turn it over to you to talk about the C4 retreat.
Thanks. And actually, we're just a little bit ahead. So great job, Odot. Thanks for coming tonight. I really appreciate the double Odot office involvement today. Great job. I know you are busy over there. Some of those presentations being drafted even today. So thanks for your attention and bringing that all to Clackamas County for us. Yes, the C4 retreat. And so here is the update. I have been in touch with our departments who would be helping to coordinate the presentations at the C4 retreat, and there's still more work to do and more coordination with even other, not only Clackamas County partners to deliver something that would be fruitful and valuable for a retreat. And that's going to include working with, even Dwight over at SMART and folks at TriMet, et cetera. So I've heard you say transit, I've heard you say disaster preparedness, and that might be a little bit of a hybrid climate action plan sort of combo. But topic-wise, I'm not worried about what we have to build and present at the C4 retreat on October 1st and 2nd is the dates that y'all have given me. I also have been working with formerly the resort at the mountain. I still call it that, but I think it's the Mount Hood, Oregon Resort now is their new name. And they have been great. I have a contract that's like ready to hit the go button on it, but here's my thing. And I think we're all seeing this. So this is me triple checking that cases are on the rise. We're talking about an in-person retreat. We're talking about plenty of staff time and coordination going into this. We're talking about per person. It's, it's fairly expensive for everybody, but not burdensomely expensive. It's pretty similar, but a little bit more than it's been in the past years. And so before I hit all the go buttons, I am sort of looking to y'all for head nods that, on October 1st and 2nd, if things were to stay about where they are today, let's just use today as a metric, that there would be interest in still attending, and that there would be, critical mass to justify the investment of building this retreat. And if it's okay if the answer is no, we can come up with an alternative. I just want to make sure that there's some good conversation here about what's real and what's happening, what we're seeing as a trend. Because I also don't, want to put a lot of staff in the position to do a lot of work. And then, if cases happen if we all say yes today. So I'm aware of that, but just want to see where this group is at in this conversation.
I see Commissioner Schrader has her hand up. Commissioner Schrader. You're on mute.
You're muted, Martha.
Yeah, I think it would be good to see each other in person. I think probably all of us are vaccinated. So we're probably going to be pretty safe no matter what. Obviously, we can wear masks. But I also wanted to mention, Trent, that I've been talking to some of our mayors, and many of those folks would like to hear from our housing authority again about what the revenue streams are, how do we manage it as a county, how do we do affordable housing. I know that we had a discussion about this a few years ago, but for example, I talked to Joe Buck recently, And his remark to me was that, you know, it'd be nice to really get another overview of what that is because of the complexity. So I was just going to throw that out there. Obviously, we've been doing this a while as a county with housing, with understanding those streams, and not only getting physical capacity, but trying to figure out how we're going to do wraparound services as well. So it might be, I was just going to throw that out if the group wants to have that as part of the agenda. So that's, again, that's up to everyone else. And I am talking to all of our, trying to get meetings with all of our mayors in the county. So, okay.
Yeah, thank you, Martha. Essentially, we some of you may or may not be aware, but some of the mayors have been contacted and they've expressed, and rightfully so, you know, concerns about supportive housing services. And there's been some, because of the complexity of this and the rollout of the funding has not been as planned. But where all the counties are making adjustments to make that happen. And I know that there was a concern about there was an $8.2 million in cuts, and Commissioner Schrader and I had the privilege and opportunity this afternoon to get a pretty good shot at that to clarify that there really isn't $8.2 million in cuts, and there's actually about 11.2 or $11.3 million in expenditures that are actually being dispersed.
Yeah.
So this might be an opportunity to clarify that. Now, whether we do that at the retreat or whether we do that, you know, at a future meeting here in the coming months is up to you all. But that's what Commissioner Schrader is trying to express here. We want to make sure we reach out to many of you, and C4 was recommended for that. So I would endorse that us presenting that, but it's all up to you whether or not we do that at the retreat or we do that at a near future meeting. But I want to get back to Trent's question as far as the scheduling for the retreat. Is there anyone, I know that Councilor Lewis just sent us a chat that she won't be able to attend, but is there anyone that is concerned or suggesting that maybe we don't have the retreat?
I'm all for having the retreat. The 8th and 9th would work better for me. I'll have to do some juggling, but I think that we should meet for
So Council President Tracy Hensley, you broke up. You must not have a good connection, so we could not comprehend what you said. Is it possible you could put your statement into a chat?
Sure.
Okay. So Trent, I'm going to turn it back to you so you can pick up where we left off, or you left off.
Thank you very much. So I am seeing head nods to continue moving forward to do an in-person retreat, an overnighter at the Resort at the Mountain. Sorry, I just never remember what it's actually called, but what's what it used to be called. So many years of doing it. So I will move forward with that. I'm going to probably make some more conservative estimates on what it costs per person, just because, you know, in the past we used to get about 50 people attending. I think there could still be a little bit of heartburn there. And if we get 50 again, great. That usually means the member and the alternate for C4, as well as, you know, several staff who also attend, and that's usually great attendance. So I'm also, just candidly, it's my goal to talk to the executive committee on Monday night about contingency plans should things go belly up. And so I just want to make sure that we're doing our due diligence here to take care of public dollars for this and the retreat and everything that we all do here together. On the housing topic, thank you for that recommendation. I will check in.
Yes. Yep.
But I do want to just caution, or not really caution, but just put a disclaimer out there that, you know, the housing team has been understandably quite at capacity the last couple of weeks.
I know.
A pretty quick turnaround to be ready at the retreat in like less than 60 days is a pretty strong request, but I see it, I hear the request. I will talk to the executive committee on Monday. I will check in with the staff to see what their capacity looks like to present anything. but what I probably can commit to is something by the end of the year. So I'm just hoping for some flexibility there with that.
I would say, yes, thank you, Trent. Be flexible. It's a little bit fast to do this. I get that. But I think that given the fact we've talked, whether it's at the retreat or it's at one of these meetings, it sounds as if there needs to be a refresh. So that's fine. Let's be as flexible as we can to make sure our staff can not be overwhelmed.
Thanks. And to your point, it was a landmark year at the state legislature for housing policies and dollars. So there is stuff to talk about and coordinate on. And I will start working to see what that looks like in terms of a conversation here at C4.
Okay, great.
Thank you. I need nothing else. So what I will tell you is I will get registration forms out next week sometime. And please invite your alternate. Please also invite your council. It's not limited. The C4 retreat has never been limited to just C4 members. And so your city manager, your council, whomever is welcome to attend. This is a good opportunity for coordination. And that's what we look for here in these retreats. That's what's made them valuable in the past.
Great, thank you, Trent. So next on the agenda are impact updates. We have, I know that Commissioner Schrader and Mr. Gronke are members on impact. If I'm leaving anyone off, I think Councillor Heisey always helped us through that. She's not here this evening, but anyone want to jump in with a impact update?
Was only there for part of the time because we did have a listening session that evening with our providers, with our advocates for housing. So I would defer. I think, Christine, you were there the whole time, weren't you? And we had an update on housing issues.
Yeah, I was. And I don't know if Mr. Gronke is interested in giving the report.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a housing heavy agenda.
Yeah. So I don't know if Ed wants to say anything, but I was only there for about the first half hour. Okay. But I do believe it had to do with where the implementation plan was going and that kind of thing. But that's about as vague as you can get. Sorry.
Yeah, we had a lengthy presentation, about an hour, of the supportive housing services measure. We had a roll-up slide for each of the 3 counties' local implementation plans. We had a roll-up slide of everybody's budgets, and then we had questions and answers. The second agenda item was a report back from the state legislature, and it was highlight bills both for the Metro agenda and also for the Metro Mayor's Consortium agenda.
Okay.
Okay, thank you both. Councillor Lewis, I'm going to tap on you for JPAC as well, and I'll jump in and maybe fill any gaps in if I need to. You want to jump in on the JPAC update, please?
Oh, you want me to go? You were there too. You're just quizzing me. We had a packed agenda. The first thing we did was a recommendation for 3 sets of projects to move forward in the MTIP amendments, and that included both 217 and 205 Abernathy. So then after that vote, and I should say that was unanimous with 2 abstentions. So the MTIP vote was a good vote for us with our 205 project. Then the next conversation was about regional flexible funds. And the rollout of this, the next 3-year plan for them, including the inclusion of metro parks and nature dollars for trails in the same application. So people who have multimodal projects that involve trail, that could be, either a nature trail or more a transportation trail, can use the same application to get both kinds of dollars. And then our third agenda item was really meaty, and we started talking about it, but we ran out of time. But we have at least 3 sets of amendments that we were in the middle of discussing around adopting the findings from the regional congestion pricing study. So we did not take action there, but we tabled it. thanks to the support of Commissioner Savas. We have more talking to do there to make sure JPAC can really leave its mark on the congestion pricing conversation. How'd I do? Okay.
Darn well. Darn well. I want to thank Mayor Walters for her testimony, and also thank the Metro Council for approving that. That was on Tuesday, I believe. The Metro Council made the approval. So we're good to go. We have the funding for these projects. That's a great step forward. So thank you. Are there any other updates from anyone on any particular group?
Yes, there are 3 updates. One is with Councilor Pratt with the Climate Action Plan. She is one of our C4 appointees to that group, / city appointee. One is from Mr. Dwight Broussard about bus on shoulder. And then I have one to introduce a new field rep for one of our congressional delegation offices.
Councilor Pratt, could you please give us an update?
Sure. Last Thursday, we had our first Climate Action Plan Committee Advisory Task Force, longest name ever, meeting. A lot of it was just orientation and some little exercises to get to know the other committee members, but we were told that our task is to start with the county goal of carbon neutrality by 2050, to look at that with a climate lens, and the end result they want from us is a series of 2-year implementation plans over that almost 30 years. And we will be meeting then every other Thursday, and they said probably into November.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Dwight Broussard, update on bus on shoulder.
Yes, good evening, everyone. Dwight Broussard, Transit Director for SMART, owned and operated by the City of Wilsonville. City of Wilsonville SMART just recently signed an agreement with Odot, and this agreement kind of outlines what each agency's responsibility will be to bus on shoulder. We are responsible for the buses. We're going to do some really nice wraps on those buses, special uniforms for the drivers, training, SOPs, all of that. And ODOT, for their part, is preparing the shoulder. So if you go out on I-5 between Wilsonville and Tualatin, you will see striping on the shoulder. It is an indication where the bus will be allowed to enter the shoulder and exit the shoulder accordingly. If everything goes well, and we're right on track with everything right now, you should see the first bus on shoulder service begin in late October, early November. We do plan a test run for elected officials, where we'll take the elected officials out on the shoulder, show them what that is like, and then we'll do the same for the press. And so we'll do a bus full of reporters. And SMART will be the first Oregon agency, transit agency, to be allowed to operate on the shoulder. And I think it's important for a couple of reasons, primarily for this group, is that this is the precursor to a service that SMART is partnering with Clackamas County, Washington County, Ride Connection, and a few others to operate service along the I-205. And so SMART will be working with ODOT to get access to the I-205 shoulder as well. And the goal there is to set up a service that is so good, so robust, that when ODOT starts tolling the I-205, the people that are using, the customers that will be using that service, the tolling will be of no consequence to them. I don't want to wait until the day tolling starts. I think we get this service out there long ahead of tolling. And again, if we can make tolling of no consequence to those folks that are enjoying good transit along I-205, I think that's going to be a feather in everyone's cap. So we're excited about this. Look for more information. I did send Trent a flyer that we put together with ODOT. There's a website that out there that ODOT set up that talks about this, frequently asked questions and things like that. So this is This is huge for Oregon, and especially huge for SMART, the little agency that could. So we're excited. Thank you.
Thank you, Dwight. So if I heard you correctly, the bus on shoulder pilot will start on I-5, and then there'll be a second effort along 205 in the near future.
Yeah, and the beauty there, Commissioner, is the way things are lining up. The funding for the service is pretty much in place between the partners. The only thing missing is the shoulder at this point. So yeah, so we'll be working on that.
Yeah. Well, we're very proud of the work that you and all the other providers have put together this package, and Tualatin and everyone, all the partners. So Teresa, others, thank you so much. You guys have really done fantastic work. So we're really excited.
Thank you.
Thank you. Was there one more update, Trent? I think you had 3. We covered 2 of them.
That's right. I hope he's still listening. I brought him on over. His name is John Serra. He's our new Clackamas County Field Staff Representative Director. You have an official title. I'm going to mess it up. But I'm pleased to introduce you to John. He represents Congressman Schrader's office. Congressman Schrader represents almost every city in Clackamas County. I think Sandy and Estacada might be the only 2. But I think everybody else works with Congressman Schrader in some capacity. And so we don't always do this because we don't always get new people from those offices, but that office has been part of C4, usually over in the rafters. But since he's new to us, I wanted to give him a chance to say hello and say where he's from, and maybe even put in his email in the chat box so that everybody has access to that.
Great. Thank you, Trent. And thank you, Commissioner Savas. Yeah, my name is John Serra. I'm the new field director and Clackamas County field representative for Congressman Kurt Schrader. Previous to this, I spent a short stint in the Oregon State Legislature. And before that, I was actually the coastal field representative for Congressman Schrader for about 5.5 years. So coming on staff now, you worked with Megan in the past, and I look forward to working with all of you moving forward. I'm a Clackamas County resident myself. I live here in Oak Grove, so all these issues are very close to me, and I'm looking forward to it. I will be doing my due diligence to reach out to all of you over the next few weeks as I get my feet under myself here in this position, but I encourage all of you to reach out to me. I'm going to drop my email in the chat box here, and I hope to be a resource to all of you, and I'm looking forward to working with you. Thanks very much.
Great. Thank you, John. Good to have you on board. Just give our thanks to the Congressman for all his great work and support for what he's done for Clackamas County and his district. So thank you. Is there anything else, anything for the good of the order? Any other topics, updates?
I'm just going to delay for a second to give John a chance to put his email in the chat box. So dancing just for a second, but just so y'all know, we do have pretty good relationships with the other field staff for our other congressional delegation offices as well. And so as issues come up, as we do other additional coordination at the federal level, those field staff folks are all often in touch with Chris Lyons and me, and in many cases with many of you. And so I just really am grateful for those relationships that we have with our delegation offices at both the federal and state level. John, you got to put it in there. I can't talk for too much longer because we are right at the edge of maybe ending earlier than everybody has ever ended before. So
I think I've got it in there, Trent.
Oh, there it is. Good.
Let me know if you can't see it. Okay.
No, I got it. I see it there. Okay, yeah. I'm done.
Thanks a lot.
Delay over.
Thanks again, John. Going once, going twice. You all have a safe drive home. Thank you so much.